Hello, good evening televiewers. Welcome to Prime Hour on my Media Prime. This evening we're going to be looking at the outing of a doctor in Cameroon who announced that eating puff, beans and pap, amongst others, was not very good for our health. According to him, these food items that we have been eating, all of us, because I'm sure 90% of Cameroonians are fed on puff, beans and pap, and indicated that this was very, very toxic. And since then, we've been waiting to hear from the National Council of Biologists in Cameroon to put out a statement telling us, enlightening us more on the revelations of this doctor, or the National Medical Council to also throw light on this. Even the Minister of Public Health till date, we've not had any official statement from them. We felt that we should come back to it, also tell Cameroonians what they think about it, because we know that you are going to be watching and participating, you'll be sharing with us. But there is also a Cameroonian who has been involved in food transformation, who is calling Cameroonians to go back to organic feeding, and has been doing a lot as far as Afro-Brains Cameroon is concerned. Dr. Tata Fon, Emmanuel, is in the house with us to also share with us what he thinks about these new revelations. Good evening, Dr. We are glad to have you.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure. It's always an honor for me to be at Prime TV. I'm really humbled by that invitation. Thank you.
We also are in the company of a permanent consultant, Apostle Ambe Valentine. Apostle, good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Liu. Good evening, my co-panelist, Dr. Tata. Good evening, Cameroonians, and welcome to today's edition of the program. We are talking dieting.
Okay. Apostle, I will start with you. We have grown eating these things, and we've been eating fufu, we've been eating puff, we've been eating gari, we've been eating all these things. And today we are told that some of these things are not nice. Why now? Is it the fact that, okay, science is also discovering many more things?
Mr. Leo, I think there is a high mortality rate in Africa, and it should not be accrued to the fact that it's because of what we eat in Africa that makes us die. Yeah, the highest centenarians in the world are from Asia. First, we have the Japanese, we have the South Koreans. Before you go to America, before you come to Europe, before you come to Africa, Africa has a high mortality rate. But should we attribute that to the fact that it's based on what we eat? I don't really want to believe that, even though I'm not against dieting. I'm not against proper eating and eating balanced food. With respect to what the doctor submitted, that Puff and beans is trash, or from what he said, that is toxic to the system. To me, I have a little worry about that, because we have studied different categories of foodstuff. We have protein, we have carbohydrate, we have fat and oil, which are all things that are needed in the body, except you take it in excess. I think every foodstuff becomes destructive if we take it in excess. If you eat sugar in excess, it will be destructive. If you take excess fat, it will be destructive. If you take excess protein, it will be destructive. Anything you take in excess will be destructive. It is the way we manage the diverse kind of meals we have that can be a benefit to our system or a destruction. For instance, if somebody says puff and beans is bad, let's go to the component of puff and beans. Beans, first and foremost, is protein, and that is the richest protein to the best of my understanding, because it will not give you gout tomorrow like meat. It will not affect your system like meat. That is the richest protein I know, that even if you take it, it cannot affect you to some extent. Coming to puff is flour born out of wheat, and wheat is carbohydrate. And when you take carbohydrate and protein, I don't see how bad it is. It could be in the process of preparation that causes the protein to die, because sometimes overheat kills the protein content, sometimes overheat kills the carbohydrate. When we microwave food, we put them on fire, the heat in the system destroys the component that can enrich our system. And that's the reason why most people eat egg half fried, they eat beans half cooked, they eat plantains half cooked, because they believe that sometimes when we overcook the food, it kills the rich content of that food. So to the best of my understanding, the problem could be in the preparation, not that puff puff that I know too well, grew in the Mutengene, and I ate it all throughout my life, and I'm still strong today, hale and hearty. The beans I've been eating all throughout my life, suddenly in 2022 becomes toxic. Then I should have died for eating that thing for no less than 30 years on earth.
Okay. Now, let's look at this doctor. He says the pap contains sugar, and according to him, sugar is not really good for our health. And then talks about the puff puff, and then talks about the beans. What is wrong with all of this that does not function well in our general well-being?
Yeah, this is quite an interesting subject. I have actually listened and watched a lot of persons, talking on this issue. And to be very honest, I was very, if not embarrassed or surprised, that certain medical persons actually came out, and what they said was the least of what I expected intellectuals in Cameroon to actually have said. To situate his statement in context, the first thing is it is not about the dish, puff puff and beans. It is not about the dish, it's about the components of the dish. Okay. Because what he said specifically was that the wheat flour, of course, wheat flour contains gluten. Gluten is a complex protein. The body doesn't really digest complex compounds very much. So if you eat gluten, if you eat wheat flour, it stays in your stomach for about 2 to 3 days before it gets out. If before the 2 to 3 days you eat another one, what that means is that you're going to constantly have that particular food in your stomach. And for a long time, it can trigger what we refer to as celiac or gluten intolerance.
Okay, if you were to be eating it every day.
Yeah, that is if you eat it frequently, or if you eat it for a prolonged time, because like I said, this is food that can stay in your stomach for about 2 to 3 days. So it means that if you eat today, and then maybe after tomorrow you eat another, the one that you ate a day before is still in your stomach. So you just compound it. So we don't only have that in puff puff or in wheat, I must say. We don't only have that in wheat. We also have that in some beers. Okay, I don't want to call the brands, but Bellies, any beer that is produced out of Bellies also has gluten, a lot of gluten in it. And the same thing that gluten in wheat will do is the same thing that gluten in Bellies will also do. So what he was trying to highlight was the fact that this complex compound is not very healthy for our human consumption, especially if we have the tendency of consuming it frequently. He also indicated that the oil is refined. Of course, we know that in the refining of oil, there are 4 processes. We have the bleaching of the oil, the deodorization of the oil, we have the decolorization of the oil, and we have the neutralization of the oil. All these processes result in a product that is not healthy for human consumption. He also talked about the sugar. The sugar which is also used, it's also refined sugar, which is not good for human consumption. So these are the items, the elements in the dish that he highlighted. He was trying to say that all these things in one dish makes that dish unhealthy. That was what he was trying to say. So I listened to some medical persons, top medical professor that spoke on this and was threatening that he was going to gun down Dr. Pauline Nzebo, but it doesn't, sorry, maybe that's not the right pronunciation of his name, but Dr. Pauline, something like that. But it's really bad, because I don't think that was the right way, because the doctor who said that the puff and beans, in that context that he defined clearly, that the puff and beans is toxic, he's right, but then he also forgot, or he was supposed to, in order to communicate properly, he was probably supposed to go ahead to say that puff can also be produced out of sweet potato flour, cassava flour, corn flour, plantain flour. So if you produce...
Okay, that's where the trick is.
That's
okay.
right.
The issue with the puff puff is what is used.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's right. So he could have communicated better if he had gone ahead to say that, okay, however, if you do produce your pawpaw from corn flour, from sweet potato flour, cassava flour, or plantain flour, or any other locally made flour, then you wouldn't have a problem. Similarly, if you produce your pawpaw, most of the ladies actually who do the pawpaw, they use red oil. And the red oil is not refined. They bleach it. So bleaching is just one process out of the 4 processes of oil refining. So that oil is not as bad as indicated. So it's quite okay as long as they just bleach it. Though the temperature at which, like Apostle rightly indicated, the temperature at which the oil is usually taken to tends to kill the useful proteins that are supposed to be helpful to the body. So in a nutshell, the doctor who indicated that the pawpaw was toxic he's right, but just that the context was not well defined. It's not about puff and beans, because we could do puff and beans, we could do our puff with other flours, as I've indicated. So, but if he had said that, I think that people would have understood him clearly, and people would have started understanding the value, like what we've always been saying at AfroBrains, that the local flours that we have, the local products that we have, they are not only nutritious, but they are also good for our health.
Okay, they are good for our health. Apostle Ambe Valentine, this is making rounds on social media, mainstream media. We have seen many persons talk about it, and some persons are skeptical about consuming what we have grown in. But officially, we have not heard something from the ministries and medical corps and the biologists corps come out to situate Cameroonians that don't be scared. Or maybe he said this, but like doctor is saying, this is how we should go about consuming puff and beans, because it is already a part of us.
Yes, Mr. Leo, talking about the medical corps in the country coming up to make a statement, I do not want to put any blame on them, because probably most of them have not come across the video. We cannot accuse them for what they do not know. And then number 2, I don't think if they have seen it even relevant enough, because if the information was that too dangerous, they cannot put poison in the water that circulates in the well and then the health personnel don't come out to make an announcement. Maybe they have watched it closely and realized that the thing is of no relevance. And that's the reason why they are quiet, because I don't think the health personnel in this country will close their mouth over something that is very toxic to the society, and they will not come to fan aglow the fire that's already burning, that people should stop consuming it because this is bad. We know of things in the country that the government has come up publicly to destroy, to condemn, that guys, don't take this thing, it's not good for your health. Also, there is also a food control body in each country. I don't know if we have it here, but in Nigeria have NAFDAC. There is nothing you consume in Nigeria that does not go through NAFDAC, which means such a thing should go into circulation after the respective body has been able to carry out some analysis on it before it goes to the market.
This is information that was made public on national TV. If the doctor was received on national television.
Yes.
He spoke to Cameroonians, and we know other medical personnel who have spoken on this, and we already are seeing the impact. There are persons who are today skeptical to feed on what he said they should not feed on because of this. Now, if we see that the medical corps has not spoken about it because they don't deem it necessary, should they not at least tell Cameroonians that we are researching, we are doing findings? Should a university in Cameroon, where we have researchers, say that, okay, this is what is circulating out there, but this is what we found out?
Mr. Leo, like I said earlier, if I thought that information was that very bad, the medical corps of this country would have made a statement with respect to that. Let's just go out of what the man said.
Okay.
How old are we today? For how many years have we eaten puff and beans? And how detrimental has it been to our health? What kind of sickness have developed out of our systems? People who grew before us and ate puff and beans, what has been the impact on their lives? Those are the questions we should be asking right now. Because the truth is, at the end of the day, you might end up not eating anything. you might end up not eating anything in this life, because almost everything on earth is bad. From the medical point of view, they will give you analysis as this one is bad, this one is bad, this one is bad, this one causes this, this one causes this, this one causes this. At the end of the day, you are almost afraid to eat anything. I've been told not to eat sardine. That metals from the container that comes out gets mixed up with the sardine, and they can produce cancer in your system. I have been told also not to eat sugar, because sugar is not sugarcane. It's fabricated in labs in Europe. It's not organic. The sugar we carry out, and what they use to make it come out into cubes is formalin. What is being used to inject people in the hospital when they die, that's what they mix in your sugar to make it become cubes. So you are eating formalin via sugar, and that sugar is elements combined in labs in Europe and other countries and sent to Africa. Is not what you find from Nsungkikang. It's not the sugarcane that comes from the farm that is used to produce your sugar. Those sugar, they are not organic. We've been told that the best we have to consume is honey. I've been asked to eat fruits. The fruits themselves, if you consume them, they can give you excess sugar in your system, because the percentage of sugar in pawpaw, in watermelon, in pineapple, if you consume all those things, they can equally increase sugar in your system. At the end of the day, I wish to ask, what is that we're supposed to eat? We have 3 categories of food. We have carbohydrate, we have protein, we have starch. Carbohydrate, protein, and vegetable, vegetables, and then fats and oil. For vegetables, we have vitamins. For fats and oil, we have fats. For protein, we have protein. For carbohydrate, which is starch, they will tell you that water fufu is not good because of this. To me, the best of my understanding is the preparation. If you don't know how to prepare something, it will cause either destruction or frustration. If you know how to prepare it, Dr. Tata here prepares water fufu, and we buy it from Afro Beans and we eat it. The water fufu is not bad, it's the process. Who is processing the water fufu? That's the problem. Somebody has eaten water fufu and developed typhoid, another person has eaten it and be okay. Who is processing it? They tell you cook food half cooked, because if you cook it too ready or too, how do I put it? It loses all its nutrients, and then it kills all its energy. So you have to cook it half cooked. My wife does not fry egg ready. It doesn't brown. The egg is half fried, because if you fry it, it will kill all the nutrients in it, and the story goes on and on and on and on and on and on. If the medical corps of this country could sit down and listen to a medical doctor make such a statement on the media, and none of them deemed it fit to come up and address the issue, I don't think that information is that dangerous the way we take it.
Okay. You think so? Is it normal to sit and almost no entity, no council, nobody says anything, at least to reassure the population that, please stop calling, that reassure the population that whatever you might have listened to is not as alarming as it sounds?
Yeah, actually, the Cameroonian biologist who made those statements never said anything new. Actually, all those things that he said are scientific statements that have been existing for several years. It's just that he brought this to light. He made this statement on a product that people consume on a daily basis, so it caught people's attention. So I think that is basically where the whole issue is. But if you look at it again, you'd see I really don't want to spend a lot of time trying to analyze whether the authorities care or they don't care. I think rather I prefer to look at the population and see how we can be able to together to talk, to have this type of conversation, this kind of discussions, so that they can learn some of those foods and how those foods, like Apostle rightly said, you see, everything about food is the processing. And that is why when Afro-Brains came into Cameroon, we started encouraging Cameroonians to focus and feed on the foods that are produced locally. Because the foods that are produced locally are natural, they are organic. Most of the foods, I can say this as a matter of fact, more than 75% of the food that we import into Cameroon are produced from labs. You see, it's very surprising for you if you hear that Cameroon imports about 1 million tons of wheat flour each year. Of course, wheat has a problem with the human body. Prevalence of gluten intolerance in Cameroon, which we call celiac, is 7% in Cameroon. What that means is that about 1.9 million Cameroonians are walking around with gluten intolerance without knowing that they have this condition. And gluten intolerance is a health condition which is associated with the fact that you've eaten this compound called gluten for a long time. And what it has done to your stomach, to your small intestine, is that it has destroyed the digestive elements on the walls of the small intestine. And then it prevents your small intestine from absorbing the rich nutrients from the food that you've eaten. So what happens is that you begin to suffer from the deficiency of those nutrients that ought to have been absorbed. So that is simply what gluten intolerance or celiac is all about. Like I said, about 1.9 million Cameroonians walk around, which is a great number, walk around without actually knowing. It's not just in Cameroon. Tanzania consumes about 1.2 million tons of gluten. In Tanzania, we have a prevalence of about 13.5. In Rwanda, they consume about 1.5 million tons. In Rwanda, we have a prevalence of about 15.5. In France, we have 650,000 people suffering from celiac. What's happening in Europe is that they have realized that wheat is not good for their health. So they are buying, if you look at, there are a lot of Chinese companies in Africa buying cassava chips. Why are they buying cassava chips? To produce gluten-free products. You go to the US, you go to the West, you realize that you go to shelves where you have gluten-free products, the prices are very high. You go to shelves where you have organic products, the prices are very high. Only the rich in those countries can afford those products. But here in Africa, we have them at our nostrils. We have them at almost giveaway prices. But simply because, I don't know whether the white man has not told us that that is the better one. Because the white man would never tell you that is the better one. Because if you start to consume those products, the white man will not have his own to consume. So they have to scare you out of that and send you cheaper and less nutritious or less healthier products. I'm very surprised. The other day I was watching some people starting to cultivate wheat in Cameroon. I'm baffled. Why? Because Cameroon produces about 5 million tons of plantains. Cameroon produces about 5 million tons of cassava. And out of these 5 million tons of plantains, we lose about 2.5 million tons of plantains each year. And we lose a similar figure in cassava. What that means is that each year we lose about 5 million tons. If you go to sweet potato, you add the figures, it still continues to climb. So if we produce about 5 million tons and lose we produce about 10 million tons, we lose almost about 5 million tons, half of it. So why are we even going to start cultivation of wheat when we could just take that money and secure and transform the plantains that is getting rotten every year in the market? I can tell you this as a matter of fact. Go to the market and you would see the quantity of plantains that get rotten every day. Yeah, but these are
revelations that you are also presenting as a doctor. And I'll get back to our medical corps and the biologists and the rest. Why don't they educate a population, the government, about what he is saying, so that we get less, you say it's wheat. Yes, that's gluten.
Yeah, of course. The thing is this. The thing is that you have to know that before colonization, there was no wheat in Africa. Actually, wheat is a product that was imposed on Africans, just like other things like cocoa and all those other things. Those are products that were imposed on Africans. If you even go into the science of the celiac, you would realize that it is described as a tropical condition that faces or that attacks elderly persons. So it's not tropical, I'm sorry, temperate, meaning that this is a condition that is associated with persons living in the temperate zones. But because wheat has been forced into Africa, because you see, when we in Africa, when we consume wheat, we have, you see, the prevalence of celiac is most common in those countries that consume a lot of wheat. If you look at the statistics globally, you would see that all the countries that consume a lot of wheat, they tend to have a high percentage prevalence of celiac. In Europe, they have started eliminating products, wheat or gluten products. Now they are buying cassava flour from African countries and producing gluten-free products and so on. So it is, I believe that in Cameroon, what we should be doing is trying to secure, transform the excess of plantains that we are producing and is getting rotten, the excess of cassava that we are producing and is getting rotten, transform that into other forms like what we are doing at AfroBrains, so that we can be able to forget completely about the wheat and the 1.9 million, about the 1.9 million people who are out there. This is information that is out there. This is not information that is being fabricated, but this is data which is out there. And a lot of people don't even know that in Cameroon, we produce this volume of food, and that in Cameroon, this number of persons are suffering from this condition as a result of this. You would be very shocked also to know the statistics of people suffering from sugar-related conditions, sugar health, diabetes, for example. The prevalence, of course, this is evident, the prevalence of diabetes in Cameroon is very high. It is associated with alcohol consumption. You think the people of the leaders of this country don't know about the consumption of alcohol in this country? I think there was one politician who is of blessed memory who said that Cameroonians, exactly, who said that Cameroonians drank alcohol in 1 year. That was almost equivalent to the Wuri River or something like that.
Good evening, Mr. Liu. I like your program. That doctor should let us be. Some of us can't do without puff puff and beans and pap. My grandparents ate them. My parents are still eating them. I have been eating them for more than 30 years. Pamela is writing from Ezeka. Good evening to you, Pamela. Good evening, Mr. Liu. It's good to advise, but the manner that it's done can be dangerous. I think all foods are good and bad depending on the way it has been handled. Small time, man no go get thing for chop sep. God bless you all. Snazzy is writing from New Bell. Please stop calling. Send your message, I'll read them out. Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Liu and the crew. There is one appreciation we learned. IEC, Information, Education and Communication. He might have had a good knowledge, but the communication and education method was not adequate. Even the person who mentioned cassava in there is cassava is cyanide. Okay, there's cyanide in it also, which if taken more, not good for diabetic patients. Fee is writing from United Arab Emirates. But he raised an issue that these nations out there are moving away from wheat consumption in favor of cassava and a host of others. We have cassava here, we have plantains, we have potatoes. And almost everybody is jittery today to engage in wheat cultivation and not rather looking at how to valorize what we already have.
I think the challenge we have is communication. A nation that will grow will definitely develop program slots on different TV platforms to educate the masses in areas they are ignorant. One of the things that makes Japan very great is because a Japanese woman at the age of 80 is constantly on the internet and on television to get very important information. Any nation that does not take upon themselves to educate their citizens go nowhere. How do you explain that somebody like me who read political science, I'll be having an understanding about food production? If they need something in the political domain, I think they should call my attention to come on television and then expatiate so that those who are in different fields who are not vested in my field could learn. Now, if people who are in this domain of health, they could make a health program on television and bring the biologists and the medical corps to come and educate us.
It comes back to what I said earlier, that the nation is going through a lot. For example, we have a wheat crisis, we have like these revelations.
Of course.
What are our researchers doing? That's
what I'm letting you understand, that we have to create programs on television to educate people, because I think people are specialists in a domain, not in every domain. When you hear somebody has a PhD, doesn't have PhD in every field. He has a PhD in a field. He's a master in a domain. I think we should be exchanging, lot like just like the COVID-19 stuff that came. Teachers were not going to school. They create programs on CRTV. Teachers from different institutions came and taught the masses. It was not just the children they were teaching. They were educating people in the fields that they were not educated in. For instance, Dr. Tata is expatiating very deep in the area of food production because that's his area. And also, if you come to automation engineering, you call him, he will explain something there. That's his area. I have my field. Now, when issues like this come up, it is important for those who are in that field to be given opportunity, and then awareness is called upon the nation to stay glued to their screen that on this time, this day, they are going to be addressing this topic, so that the person who is not vested in knowledge in that area could sit. What do we do every day? We come here to educate people. There are many persons who have called me from Europe and America, Asia, and said that we have educated them on so many things they did not know. Do you know those people are not illiterate? They are just educated in a particular area and they are ignorant in another area. So now, not the medical personnel. How do I know human beings is bad? I want to even find out, Dr. Tata talk of the gluten that is found in wheat. What is the sickness that the gluten produces in your system? Because it could be an effect of indigestion. And how does indigestion now, what kind of sickness sugar can produce? Diabetes. Oh yes, sugar can produce diabetes, and the alcohol can destroy your liver. Cigarette can destroy your lungs. This indigestion, what kind of sickness does it produce? Secondly, the challenge we also have is that we are into agriculture in Cameroon particularly. We produce plantains, we produce cassava. We did not even need wheat in the first place. It will let you understand that the wheat is a superimposed diet to the Africans because we have substitute for wheat. It's so strange that there's war in Ukraine and there's substitute of flour in Cameroon. That's an insult because we have many things that are far more better than wheat. Now we cannot even use them to. What do we need wheat for? For wheat even coming to Africa and causing gluten is an abuse in the first place. We were not supposed to have a war in Ukraine to begin to cry of flour. We have so many things here like potatoes that we can substitute for flour. We can use plantain for flour. We can use cassava for flour. Who knows about it? People do not know. A young man met me and said, cassava has 300 different products out of it. I sat and I listened to him. That's to let you understand that me who read a particular area, I am ignorant. Why don't we create space for people to be educated? Look at what happened. We have been arguing about Anglophone crisis. When Professor Jolongo came and sat here and gave profound revelation about it, those who did not know the history then came out to their consciousness. That's the reason why people can carry gun and start fighting, because they are ignorant of what they are fighting. Now, somebody who knows the story was sitting in his house. Where was Professor Jolongo since before the crisis started? If he had come up on air earlier and started trumpeting it, it's like a solution coming a bit too late. Now that the man have come up with the idea of puff and beans is trash, is toxic, we are the medical personnel to come and take away fear from us who have been eating for the past 20 years. Because somebody will just sit psychologically and feel like he's about to die. It is trash. What kind of sickness does it cause?
Yes, because
and how do we go about treating it?
People today will die and they say it's excess consumption of
puff and beans. Yes. Mr. Leo, what sickness does this thing produce and how do we treat it? You don't give half information.
Yes, but the problem is we think that wheat is not too good. We have the solution in our hands.
Wheat is not good, actually.
Yes, we have the solutions in our hands, and I'm not sure it's today that we started talking about cassava flour.
Since, yes, I've been singing that yet.
Potatoes flour.
In agriculture.
Maize flour.
Exactly.
What is happening that we are not making use of this so much? You talked of how many tons that are wasted every year?
Yeah, about 5 million tons.
5 million tons.
Just cassava and plantains. We have not even mentioned sweet potatoes. Yeah.
So, is it a political will or what is happening?
Yeah. So that is
it laziness to some extent?
Yeah, that is the thing. You see, I just believe that in a country where we want to develop, the people should be able to work together to handle some of those things, to prove to the leaders that these things are possible. You see, and that is one of the things that Afrobrains is doing. Yes, wheat is not about, we're thinking wheat is not, it's not good. We don't even need wheat, just like Apostle said. We don't need wheat flour in Cameroon. We don't need it because we have enough cassava and enough plantains that is getting rotten, which we can actually convert or transform to other products, to flours that we can use. Puff puff, we can do puff puff with our cassava flour, with our plantain flour. We can do puff puff with all that. It is healthy. The oil that we produce in Cameroon, there's a lot of granules in the north. Afrobrains gets granules from the north and produces cold pressed oil. Cold pressed oil is different from refined oil. Cold pressed oil is the natural oil from the plant itself. Most often than not, when people see cooking oil that carries the brand of a company, it means that it is a blend. It is not pure. That if you find oil rich in granite oil, like what Afrobrains does, it means that this is all from granules. But if you have oil that carries the brand of the company, what it means is that it is a blend. Probably they've gotten oil from here, oil from there, oil from there, and then they've created a blend which has been refined, and then they're putting it out in the market. Most of them are not healthy. Yeah, the truth is Cameroon has a wide biodiversity of products in such a way that when we start talking about food and health, Cameroon shouldn't be the country that is even talking about food and health. Celiac, as Apostle was saying, what celiac does is that it destroys the walls of your small intestine. There are some small villi on the walls of your small intestines that absorb the food that you eat. It takes the nutrients from there and then helps to build your body. But when those villi are destroyed by the gluten, which stays in your stomach, and what it does is that it starts what we call an autoimmune. It starts an autoimmune, which means that the walls of your stomach, probably because the flour stays in your stomach for long, the walls of your stomach start seeing it as a pathogen, a strange, so it starts to eat itself. It starts to produce a wall, a resistant wall. When it produces that resistant wall on the wall of your stomach, then now your stomach cannot absorb the food that you eat. So what you suffer from is deficiency of those foods that you are supposed to receive after eating. If you eat, for example, your beans and you're supposed to get proteins from it, you're supposed to get some vitamins, you're supposed to get those things, you won't get them. Why? Because the walls of your small intestine have developed that hard wall to protect itself from what? From the gluten. So it is reacting against a food that it was supposed to absorb. So that is as a result, like I said, when you eat gluten, it stays in your stomach for 2 to 3 days. So it means that if you eat it after 1 day, it's going to continue to stay in your stomach. So you're always going to have it in your stomach. So I'm believing that as a result of that, I must indicate that I'm not a medical practitioner, but this is my area of specialty when it concerns food production. There are other things that the medical practitioners will indicate that will be probably much deeper, that will relate to probably the signs and symptoms and all those things. But that is the basic action of the wheat in the human body. So wheat is not good. But on the other hand, I think Apostle indicated something which is very interesting. No, it was a message that from one of the persons talking about cyanide. Cassava contains cyanide. Even our great-grandparents knew how to reduce the amount of cyanide in cassava. You would notice sometimes our parents, when they harvest cassava, they can put it in the soil and cover it. And then after some days before they come on, they peel it and use it. That was to make sure that the cyanide in it should be reduced. When you ferment cassava, it removes all the cyanide. Most of the cyanide in cassava is stored on the skin. People still produce flour from the skin of cassava. So if you remove the skin, you ferment the cassava like the water fufu that Afrobrains is producing. Because of the fermentation process, the cyanide is completely removed out of that. There are other processes that takes place even after the fermentation process. So fermented cassava is actually healthier than non-fermented cassava. So people who claim that water fufu gives typhoid, it's not true. It's incorrect. It's inaccurate. Actually, when you ferment cassava, it becomes healthier than when you eat cassava without fermentation, because the one that is non-fermented contains relatively higher amount of cyanide compared to that which has been fermented.
Wow. I'm also learning here today. Good evening to Prime. Half-cooked food too, they say it's not good. Oh, they say especially meat or beef. Clovis is writing from Mutengene. Please ask the doctor, how can one get this flour? Doctor, the flour, you are talking about potato?
Yeah, we have potato flour, we have cassava flour, we have plantain flour, we have the lost water fufu flour, there is Ewane flour, there is achu flour, and so on and so forth.
Produced by Afrobrains?
Produced by Afrobrains.
Okay. Now, but can these be used to produce puff puff already? Because we know that the demand is high. Can you supply?
Yes, of course. I mean, cassava flour is quite a lot. Afrobrains is selling cassava flour at a price lower than wheat flour, because a lot of people complain that yes, those flours are available, but they are more expensive than the wheat flour. No, that's incorrect. Cassava flour from Afrobrains Cameroon is 500 francs per kilo. That is for wholesale buyers, but you would get a price relatively higher for retail buyers. So, but that is a good place to start. We have a good amount of it. When more people are encouraged to get into cultivation of cassava, the price will definitely drop down. So this is something that people, like I said, any nation that wants to develop unites its people. So if Cameroonians are really concerned about the consumption of the local products, all they have to do is work together. And that is the reason why we're working with the local farmers, because we realize that they are a very important partner in the agricultural industry in Cameroon. So we partner with them. When they do produce, we collaborate with them. We tell them we have to make sure that the price is friendly so that we can be able to kickstart this chain, this food chain of production. Because when we are able to catch Cameroonians' attention, we can be able to keep that for long, and we'll change the system. You see, like some people are saying that, oh, they cannot just stop eating puff puff and something. So when people have done one thing for a long time, and I'm very sorry, I'm going to say that the only reason why Cameroon is importing wheat flour in Cameroon is because of the baguette bread. That is the only product that cannot be realized using our local flours. I mean, for now, but we're still working on that. That is the only product, the baguette bread, you know, the French bread, right? That is the only product. Because if you want to realize, the maximum combination you can use is 60%, 40%. That is, you use 60% of wheat flour, 40% of cassava flour, then you'll be able to realize. But if you change the percentage a little bit, it wouldn't come out. So that is what actually pushes a lot of people to import, to buy the baguette bread. Because the baguette bread itself is not even very healthy bread. It is very unhealthy bread. So sometimes if you go into the foods that we import, you can shed tears. Because you wouldn't understand. Apostle indicated something here about the sardine. Of course, tin foods are very bad for human consumption, because some of these tin foods have been exposed to temperatures that are not those temperatures that those containers were supposed to be exposed. Normally, when you have, for even tomatoes, the tin tomatoes, when you expose them to certain temperatures, certain things occur inside the container, and as a result of that, like he indicated, there are certain, even the contamination that can occur from tin, it's very dangerous.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good evening, Mr. Liu, and to the great minds you have there. People need more education on foods and their benefits equally. We cultivate the best food items and prefer to export almost all. As we speak now, in most homes now, our women and children are watching telenovela and Indian channels. Funyi Rene, it's my name, okay? This one says, where can one get the flour, please? Where can we get Afrobrain's flour? Yeah, I mean, we have warehouses in Douala. We have in Douala, we have in Yaoundé, we have in Bamenda, we have in Boya, in Limbe. So the person can just go to Afrobrain's Facebook page or go to afrobrains.com on the internet, and then you would get all the contacts there. So go to Facebook, you just check on Afrobrains Cameroon, or you go to the website, it's just afrobrains.com, just www.afrobrains.com. Okay. You're going to get all the contacts there, and then we can be able to serve you. We also do delivery at home, so you can be at home and you place your order and it will be delivered to you. Okay. If you want to get to Dr. Tata, you can also get to me. I will exchange with you later. Good evening, Mr. Liu. What of bread we eat each day? It is the same flour used. Is bread harmful? We'll say it's writing from Lime. Yes, of course, bread, we produce most of the bread. Not all of the bread in Cameroon is produced from wheat flour, I must indicate. So some of our bread is produced from cassava flour, some produced from plantain, some produced from sweet potato. But people should begin to understand that wheat flour is unhealthy simply because no doctor has indicated to you or has directed to you that this condition you're having is a result of wheat flour. You have to understand the world is more complicated than we see it. Because sometimes they will not direct some of those diseases to the products because they know there's a business in the background. So I'm trying to talk to Cameroonians that try to pay close attention. Sometimes it's business. They will not tell you that because they are afraid. If you write that on a prescription, they can sack you from the core. Your hierarchy will tell you that why are you sabotaging this company? Those are the complications. I'm trying to talk to Cameroonians. Those are the complications. So they will not direct it there. But you should understand that wheat flour is unhealthy for your body. Glad to meet you. I am watching your program right now concerning classes of food, their advantages and disadvantages to our body. Thanks a lot. Good evening to you. Glad to read from you too. This one is... Good evening, Mr. Liu and Panelist. The truth is that the West and America uses Africans to discredit African products. That can be seen in medical field, nutritional field, agricultural, and so on. We need to invest in food processing and export to others. Sonny White is writing from Boya. Good evening. Mr. Kum, and to you all in the house, I don't too much believe flour gives any illness because I have been eating flour for close to 20 years. Now in Middle East, I'm still eating flour. Yeah, the majority of food here is being made with flour, and no one has ever gone to the hospital because of flour. Mohammed is writing from Oran. Okay, Mohammed. Good evening. I'm sure all the hospitals in where you are, they are empty. Good evening to you in the studio. Thanks to my Media Prime for being an educative program like this. I've learned something new about the water fufu, which many say gives typhoid. Dr. Thanks for vindicating my traditional meat. Terence Ayuk is writing from Muyuka. Good evening, Mr. Liu and Dr. Tata. I'm really enjoying your program. I wish to thank you people for the education. Take Edit from Bamenda. Onit Cosmetics. Good evening to you. Glad to read from you too. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Good evening, everyone at the studio. Thank you so much for this topic. I think this is a point where all of us should get into research and find out what this combination gives to the body and its complications, rather than refusing completely that it is not toxic at all, because there is a feeling this combination gives that we may not understand. So let's get into the field of research and be clear. Thank you. Daisy is writing from Douala. Good evening to you, Daisy. Good evening to you on the studio. This is Elvis from Yaoundé. I wish to comment on the puff beans and pap. Tell me what makes one to sleep 10 minutes after consuming these three. Okay. Good evening, sir. I wish to ask if there is an organization in Cameroon that can train us on how to process this our local product locally. I really need the training because cassava in my area is really being wasted. This is Carol writing from Amanda. Afrobrains, you guys train?
Yeah, we do train.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can get to me after the show. I'll link you to Dr. Tata. Good evening, Ms. Leonard. I hope you're doing fine. Please, I'll be adding. Okay. Thank you very much, President. Good evening, Mr. Leo and panelists. Other foods are gotten from wheat like bread, cakes, etc. Are they also toxic? Why the emphasis on puff? Gerard is writing from, yes, but this is also part of the education that we are saying that after this revelation, we expected many more persons to come out. Good evening, Mr. Leo and co-panelists. Thank you all for your marvelous job educating Cameroonians. I am interested with the topic of today. I listened to the doctor concerning gluten intolerance. Yes, but what about the beans? What is wrong with the beans? Let him also tell us. God bless you all. Agbo Sangaya Bridget Are writing from Boya. Yes, we are talking about the combination of beans, puff, and pap. Yes, beans and pap with. You think there's a problem?
Yeah, I think at the level of the pap, it's the sugar. I think it's the sugar which is of course very unhealthy. Sugar contains a lot of unpleasant things. Some of the things you can't even mention them. But the bottom line is sugar is not very healthy. And if it's something you eat frequently, of course it's going to shoot up your blood sugar level. And if your blood sugar level continues to shoot up frequently, then you're going to get yourself into either type 1 or type 2 diabetes health condition. So that's it. But with the beans, I think that the beans, what could be harmful in the beans is just the oil, which is refined. I think the doctor who said that actually mentioned that the problem at that level was the oil. So, but if the beans is done with cold pressed oil, like I indicated, cold pressed oil means that it has not been refined. It is pure oil. You can squeeze pear, you remove oil out of it. You can squeeze granules, remove oil out of it. That is cold pressed oil. Cold, the word cold there is of implication. It means that the temperature has not been taken too high to destroy the proteins, as Apostle rightly indicated earlier. Yeah, so, but if you even look at this whole thing about food in Cameroon, you would notice that first line of treatment of malaria in Cameroon, you know, about 11,000 people die every year in Cameroon. About 500,000 people children die across Africa of malaria. Now, come to Cameroon. Now, you realize that these 11,000 people who die, first line of treatment is artemisia. Okay, this is something that we can actually cultivate. First line of treatment, there are derivatives of artemisia, meaning that we can actually still use farming to fight malaria. And that is what China did. What China did was that in the early 80s, China realized, because in Guangzhou, China has tropical climate areas. So what they did was that they developed a tea out of artemisia and made it a culture. So the people developed this culture of always drinking the artemisia. So what happened is that it reduced greatly the amount of malaria persons that were diagnosed from the hospital. So these are organic ways in which we can actually address national issues, even global issues. So sometimes when you see that the solution of something is quite handy, then you begin to understand that the system is not as easy as you find it.
Yes.
Yes.
What's wrong? We could produce millions of tons of cassava flour,
Of course.
potato flour, maize flour, and then flood our markets with, and then now start to teach persons, carry out research on how to get a baguette bread, but what we produce from here.
Mr. Lo,
we have a ministry of scientific research and a host of others. For 30 years.
If I say that our challenge is not the brains, our challenge is not the product, our challenge is that everything has been politicized.
Okay.
That is where the past problem is. Everything is politicized. The young guy who found a permanent cure for malaria in Congo Democratic through the artemisia plant was killed. Why did they kill him? That discovery would paralyze pharmaceutical companies in Europe and America. You discover that something is naturally embedded in you. You have the materials around you, but politics kills it. If they tell the importation of wheat in Africa is an imposed treaty that has been signed to undermine the essence of plantain and cassava we have here, the biologists and the food production engineers we have in Cameroon are not blind to the fact that plantain can produce good flour. Dr. Tata is not the first generation of food processing engineers in Cameroon. There are many persons who have known this idea ever since. But are you bold enough to come up with it? You can be annihilated. That is where the trouble is. How do you explain that we have good coaches in Cameroon and we are obliged to bring coaches out of the country? Even the football is politicized. You go to agriculture, it is politicized. You go to the products we import in this country, it's politicized. You explain that something that comes from outside the country, sugar, which is not even produced from sugarcane, is fabricated in a lab in China, is more demanded in Cameroon than the honey we produce here in Oku every day, which is healthier and far more better than the sugar. Why? Politicized. And if at all we don't take away politics from all these things put together, forget about the talent, the skill, the engineers we have here, all those things will go down the drain. The challenge we have here is that we have good brains and we have good materials around us, but politics has not permitted us. There are certain things in this country we can produce and sell, but we are obliged to buy those things because they come from France. Do you know that we were deceived that pomme de France cannot grow in this Cameroon? Because we needed to buy it from France and Greece. Greece practically has nothing to offer the world except pomme de France. And because of that, we were deceived to even think of the fact that pomme de France could grow in this country. Or how do you explain that we are producing fuel in this country? We cannot refine the fuel. We sell it to Europe crude. They refine it and sell back to us 10 times the price. That's pure politics. Are you telling me that all the petrochemical engineers in this country cannot set up a refinery that can produce fuel or refine fuel for us? This is where politics kills economy, kills agriculture, kills medicine, kills science, and kills almost everything. Bishop Leonard found a cure to coronavirus in this country. But was he accepted? It wasn't accepted. Not because it was not producing result. It was producing result, but politics killed it. So we do not lack talent. We don't lack skills. We don't lack the intelligence. We don't even lack the raw materials. Politics has cooked, suffocated a lot of talents and skills in the country that cannot excel. Because I don't see how we were looking for wheat. Look at the kind of damage that wheat has as compared to plantain and cassava flour. I was even singing the production of cassava flour in this country without even having a knowledge about what wheat is. I insisted on this platform about using cassava, plantain, potatoes to produce flour here without even understanding the casualty. It is in Europe that they will allow you to eat what it's damaging your head and then produce a drug that will cure it. They send you food that destroys your head, and they produce the drugs that clean the sicknesses.
Exactly.
Because practically they have nothing to offer. They must create that balance so that they keep on exploiting us. That's it. Our fathers who grew in those days, I used to ask this question, were walking with bare body and bare feet in the villages. Yet they were not enough elements to get malaria. Today we have blankets and tents and sweatshirts.
We have malaria,
yet we have malaria
everywhere.
We drank water from the streams in the villages. There was no typhoid. We drink treated water today from Kum water, and everybody has typhoid. What is wrong? There is a question mark somewhere.
That's the question I'll put to you. Is it the fact that our parents ate organic and drank the water from the stream? They would walk bare bodies. They would sleep under trees.
Yes.
Well, yeah, you know, one thing too is probably, of course, they eat more organic, as you've rightly said. They were eating more organic. They were eating more natural food, and you know, they were not cooking their food like we cook our foods today. You know, because somebody talked about cooking of food. You see, it's not about you could cook food at very reduced temperature. The temperature doesn't need to be very high. So it's not about the you see, when our parents were exposed, normally there's what we call natural active immunity. When you are exposed to something frequently, your body automatically develops an immunity towards it. Sometimes when you stay too much away from bacteria, because the human body also has a lot of bacteria, helpful or useful bacteria in the stomach that helps in the process of digestion. So you see, when you expose yourself, when you stay too much in, if for example you were born and you are only in a place which is very pure, everything is clean, everything is what happens is that if you get out there, you would easily get infected and you will die easily. But somebody who grows up in an environment where the system faces these challenges, what happens is that your system begins to develop what we call it could be artificial active, or it could be natural passive immunity. So we could also explain that. I mean, we could also explain
Doctor,
it by
let
the
me
fact
not
that,
what about a clean madman who starts eating from the dustbin?
well, maybe some people say health is a state of mind. If you don't have a mind anymore, you don't have the capability to fall sick. It's possible. So that one, I think, there's a God reason. You know, in everything in life, there's a God factor. Yeah, there's a God factor. There are certain things that only God, the Creator Himself, can explain. But of course, we know that we are using a lot of chemicals these days. We are using a lot of stuff, manure, they're not manure even, fertilizers. When we use all those things in our farms, and it rains, and what happens to those waters that we used to drink? Those streams are no longer the streams we think they used to be, right?
Yes.
Because all the fertilizers that we use in the farms, all those fertilizers, they trickle and then they come out at the stream. So I think as development, those are some of the disadvantages of development. So that's why we start talking about green development. So whatever we are doing today, and this reminds me, I continue to encourage our farmers to avoid buying genetically modified seeds from some of these institutions that are coming into Cameroon. And these are some of the things that, as you rightly said, we would have expected our leaders to come out and say this is not right, because we know what is right and what is not right. I've said this here before, and I'm going to repeat it again. Genetically modified seeds are not good. Why? Because they'll destroy your soil. Even if you do not use genetically modified seeds, what happens is that if your neighbor uses that, for example, if your neighbor is using genetically modified seeds to corn, for example, and you are using natural corn seeds, when your corn would grow, it will be a combination of hybrid from your neighbor's genetically modified seeds and your seeds, because there's going to be cross pollination. So that is what's going to happen. And the bad thing about the GM seeds is that when you cultivate it, the first one, so when you buy them, it is written on it F1, which means first generation. When you cultivate it and then you harvest, and the seeds of the harvest, when you plant it, in some cases it wouldn't even give the second generation. In some cases it could go up to the third generation. But where is the trap? The trap here is that at the end of the day, you have to go back to the person who sold those seeds to you to buy another seed. What does that mean? What that means is that that person who is selling seeds to you has complete control of your food. If I can control your food, I can control everything else that you're doing. And that is the trap. I continue to there will be a time, and God forbid it, let it not come, a time where we will have land in this country and we will have no seeds to plant. So that's why one of the things Afro-Brains is doing.
Guys, are they not aware? Why are they not warning?
Yeah, the thing is that they don't tell them the truth about it. They tell them that these are seeds that produce better. These are seeds that produce faster. You know, everybody wants quick money. That's the point. So when you tell them that these are seeds that will produce fatter corn, more corn, better harvest, and so on and so forth, they're going to go for it. But they will not tell them the negative side of it. Because recently, I watched a video somewhere where farmers were being distributed, they were given wheat seeds. I'm like, you are giving them seeds for wheat. And I'm very sure, I've not investigated, but I'm really sure it could be GM seeds. And if it's GM seeds, what are you telling the people? It means every time they will have to go to Europe to go and kneel down and collect wheat seeds to come and cultivate, or what are they saying?
Okay. Now, before I continue reading some of the messages, I want us to clarify something about the consumption of this waterful and arrow. So many persons are scared. I told this, if you eat this, it's not good. Some people are also scared of eating achu. Some people are scared of eating fufu corn and jama jama. What would you say about this?
No, those are delicious meals, for Christ's sake. Those are good meals. Water fufu has been fermented. It's healthy. As long as the process of the production of the water fufu was hygienic. Because sometimes, some people, normally when you ferment the cassavas, when it's fermented, when you remove it, you have to wash it. You have to wash it very well to make sure that water, when you eat water fufu and it's very sour, know that it was not properly washed. Okay, and sometimes it has a scent in it. Know that it wasn't properly washed. When you wash it well, some people like the sour one. It's deliberate. They leave a little bit of the water inside, so you should have even Gary. Even Gary, when when we were back in school, we used to admire the sour one. So people don't have money to buy sugar. And we're lucky that we didn't have money to buy sugar.
I prefer that which is a little bit sour.
Exactly. Yes. So that's the point. But that may not be very healthy. It doesn't mean it is not healthy. It may not be very healthy depending on how the thing was steeped. Because normally when you cover it neatly, the water maybe it's not infected or no bacteria has gone into it. So you remove it and you wash it and your water fufu is good. So there is nothing wrong with water fufu. People who say that water fufu gives typhoid, and let me explain why this happens. When you go to the markets, to our markets, and you find people selling fresh water fufu, sometimes they sell it in open air. Sometimes you find flies that are coming from the toilets in the market and settling on this water fufu. Those vectors, the flies that land on the water fufu, because it's fresh, it's fragile, it can easily pick up any germs and stuff like that. So those are the things that will cause the water fufu to give the typhoid, not because water fufu in itself, when well produced, will give typhoid. So water fufu is quite good. For achu, I don't think that's something that they have to do. They know achu, first of all, a soap, for those who have done some little chemistry, water fufu is actually a very mild form of soap. Because in the production of soap, you use oil and then you use a base. So the calcium carbonate that...
You're talking about achu now.
Yes, that's the achu soup, right? The soup, because in the achu, I mean, the achu itself is just cocoyams, yeah? And the cocoyams that we use, here in Cameroon is very good because it's not too starchy. And even people who are suffering from diabetes are prescribed that they should, if they want to eat cocoyam, that is the best form of cocoyam that they can eat because it's not too starchy. So if you go to the soup, it's a neutral soup because it's a neutralization process. So it's basic. It's good. So it's good. That is why you see when some people they claim that, because normally alcohol is acidic, right? So when you drink it, it actually helps in neutralizing the acidic thing. The body doesn't need to be acidic. That is it. When your body is acidic for too long, you can easily contract disease. That's why you see vegans. Vegans continue to eat basic things because when your body is basic, it's healthier, it's stronger. So acid things actually go to cause a lot of problems in your system. So I think the other one you talked about was arrow. Arrow has no problem. Arrow is the vegetable. The oil is palm oil, and so there's nothing that is harmful harmful in it. So these are delicious local meals, and that is why we decided to capitalize on those ones to make people really fall in love with them. That's why we're producing waterfufu flour. That's why we're producing achu flour. That's why we're producing koki, is another delicious thing too. So producing koki flour and so on. So those are our dishes that we should protect and sell our culture. The Europeans should start buying from us, and then we should be attracting foreign currency. So that is where we're actually going to.
Okay. Please, panelists, good evening to everyone at the studio. How about palm oil? Is it good for the body? Nora is writing from Yaoundé. Please, panelists, how should we eat the puff puff? Nora is still writing. People are really scared. They want to be clear. Hi, good evening. And Gwati Otto from Bamenda. I love our African countries to have a platform as this one here in Cameroon, so that many TV stations can help our Africans to become the best. Okay. Good evening. Nowadays, we are very careful on what we eat, methods of preparation, and we still die and we still suffer from illnesses. But those days, none of such happen. Why is it that? It's because illnesses mostly follow people because of your mindset at times. Okay, not too clear, but the message is also passed on. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I'm Eleanor from Yaoundé. Please let us find a way to fight against this discrimination that influence our activities. Okay, Eleanor. Good evening, Mr. Kum. Please ask the doctor if palm oil is cold pressed oil. Zita is writing from Bamenda. Good evening. I am enjoying your program. Please, doctor, let us know where your shop is located in Limbe. Okay, I'll send you doctor's number so that you can get to him. But doctor, where is it located?
Yeah, at All Guarantee in Limbe. All Guarantee in Limbe.
Okay. So for those who are in Limbe, you want to get Afro Brains stuff, go to All Guarantee. Good evening, Mr. Liu and the panelists. Thank you for this program. One doctor came to church in Bambili and condemned puff puff and beans, worst of it all pap. To the best of my understanding, many who have in mind that it's bad. I like the clarifications being made now. God bless you all. Stanley from Bambili. Good evening, Mr. Liu and the panelists. Please, apart from sugar, what else can be used to put inside pap to make it sweet? Honey now?
Yeah, of course. We have very good honey from Oku. And the honey around, you have to make sure that the honey is not contaminated with sugar, because some people actually do all sorts of things with honey. So honey is best.
Good evening, Mr. Liu and your panelists. In fact, according to today's medical explanation concerning food and what we are learning from you guys, I want to assume that we are living a borrowed life. I want to thank Dr. Tata for educating Cameroonians. Prince Bile is writing from Germany. Good evening to you. Good evening, Mr. Liu. We have excess cassava in Ekona. How can we supply your guests? Okay, doctor, you need cassava?
Yes, of course, and large quantities. Yeah.
So doctor needs cassava. You can
always contact us.
You can contact doctor. Good evening, Mr. Liu and team. You guys are doing a great job, but I think your panel would have been complete and rich if you invited more nutritionists. Patrick Ayuk, we are going to do that next week. I hope they come. Greetings to you. Hello, Mr. Liu. How can I get Dr. Tata to tell us how to produce cassava and sweet potato? Okay, you have Dr. Tata's number. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Greetings to your panelists. I need Dr. Tata Fon's contact. Peter is writing from Limbe. Yes, but are we also now faced with the greatest form of imperialism, colonization? Because formerly it was administratively, and then we've seen technologically, and the most threatening now is food.
Yes,
our natural organic food stuff are now being relegated to the back door in favor of what comes from out of the country.
Yes, Mr. Liu, because even our soil has been contaminated. When we used to grow, or we used to know of certain elements like reptiles like earthworm. Those were things that were given by nature to burrow the soil and give it its rich content. We had things like termite, but the arrival of fertilizer has killed some of those things. You will hardly see earthworm again in our bushes. You will hardly see termites in our bushes that were natural insects that were set by nature or given by God to help enrich the soils in our continent Africa and in our country Cameroon. It's also unfortunate. Now you go to most of the bushes, you see the chemicals that have been used, fertilizers everywhere, the soil is destroyed, and when the soil is destroyed, whatever is poured upon that soil is the content of the food that comes from the ground. You discover that before food comes out, it's chemicalized. You plant cassava. I used to see plantain used to stay for 9 months. The plantain now grow for 6 months. You cut plantain, it's white inside, as if you cannot even see that reddish color on plantain anymore. It's white. The worst of it is pineapple. Pineapple is red on its body as if it is ripe. You clean the inside, it's sour as if it did not, which means it's chemical that they use to spray the skin of the pineapple, gives it as if it is ripe. When you check it inside, it's completely still raw. That tells you that a lot of chemical has invaded the soil and killed the natural elements that used to enrich our soil. And because of that, agriculture is going to another direction. My problem is all the agronomists we have in the country. Why would they sit and allow such things to destroy the system? Because they keep watching these things, they are increasing almost every day. I am seeing crops growing in Cameroon now with the speed of light. I know plantain used to be 9 months, but there are plantains that grow within 5 months, 6 months. Pineapple will stay 3 months or 1 month, it's already ready. You see huge plantain of pineapple. Cut the pineapple and test it. It's two different things. I've gone to the market, I've bought pineapple. The body is very, very ripe. You clean the pineapple, inside is something else. I went to Njombe and I bought pineapple and I asked those guys, what's the difference between this pineapple and the one? They say the pineapple that they are producing here is organic, it's natural. They take time and cultivate it. But the one that is produced is Hawaii. I think they call it Hawaii. Hawaii is pineapple that is cultivated by the Chinese people. Before you open your eye, pineapple is ripe on the skin and the inside is very sour. You see two different things. Yes. And that tells you that we are in a problem. We are in a serious war when it comes to the domain of agriculture because some people are microwaving plants. They are making plants to get ready before time. Imagine you force a particular plant to grow before time. You will not be able to get any nutrient in it. You are practically eating chemicals. And that's why we have a trouble. Now my problem, which I have a challenge, where are the agronomists in this country to guide us, those of us who are not in the agricultural domain? How can they guide us to escape all this evil that is infiltrating everywhere? You can't see. I used to grow when we were growing like you go to the farm, you see earthworm. Tell me the last time you saw earthworm. When did you see earthworm, Dr. Tata, the last time you saw earthworm? You go to the farms today, you cannot see earthworm because
we knew where we would go and get earthworm to go and do fishing.
Of course, we're using it for fishing.
Yes, we knew where you would go.
You cannot trace it now. Yes. Chemicals have destroyed all those things. Fertilizer entered there, destroyed all those things, and that's what we use to produce the corn that we harvest today. Because we want huge quantities, huge tons of corn to go and sell in beer production companies. That is the problem. And then the tomatoes we are talking. You see China importing tomatoes in Cameroon, you cannot find farm of tomato in China. You see them bringing sugar, you cannot find sugarcane plantation. Where did they harvest the sugarcane before they produce the sugar? Where did they harvest the tomato for producing the tomato here? It's not.
What we consume. Yes, but
why are these things not checked? There are companies in Cameroon. There are companies in Cameroon that import these huge drums of tomato paste. They only pass it here. I don't want to call some brands.
No, they're concentrates.
Yes, those are things fabricated in labs in Europe and Asia, sent here, and then we just parcel them here and then send to the market, begin to consume them. It's so dangerous. You are telling me of puff and beans. What about the tomato? That came from lab.
Yeah.
What about the sugar? That came from lab. What about the sardine that came from? What about all those things?
Fruit drinks.
Fruit drinks that came from the lab. So they should not go and harm puff and beans. We have eaten that thing for a very long time.
Something needs to be done so that we produce and eat Cameroon.
Yeah, that is the reason why. You see, I have said this before. If people can go back to some of the programs we did when I just came back from school, these are the things I was saying. There are certain things we cannot say because we will run into problems with companies. You see. But I will continue to say that the food that we import into Cameroon is very poisonous, and people should watch. You see, when people want food to stay long, he just mentioned the pineapple.
Okay.
You use carbide. You can use carbide to ripen pineapple. It will ripen in the skin. So some of those things, when they say them, I already know. You burn carbide and put the pineapples inside, and the gas goes to the pineapple. It will appear as ripened. Why do they do that? Because they are increasing the shelf life of the pineapple. If they allow the pineapple to naturally ripe, it wouldn't stay long in the market to be sold. So they want to artificially ripen the skin so that they can keep it on the shelves, so that people can be picking in one by one. It will not rotten very fast. They sometimes too, when they want to import.
How toxic is that carbide?
Yeah, carbide. Yeah, it's toxic, of course. It's toxic, right? It's carbide. Okay, good. So sometimes you want to export maybe things like bananas or fruits. You know, like you go to this supermarket. The worst place to buy fruits from, fresh fruits from, is supermarkets. They use what we call gamma rays to kill all bacteria in it. Because when you kill all the bacteria and everything in it,
it will not get rotten.
It will not get rotten.
Yes.
So it will stay on the shelves until you just get hardened. Notice sometimes you go to supermarkets, notice the way the fruits behave. They are like hard. They are not really rotten. But if you harvest the fruit from a tree, keep it in your home, it will get rotten after a few days. But the ones in the supermarket don't get rotten because they have used gamma radiation on them to kill all the bacteria. So there are a lot of things that are being done, the food we are importing. So we can feed ourselves. You see, there is this tendency where Western politicians keep on saying, that Africans are poor, this is something that they continue to sink into Africans' mentality until Africans themselves start believing that they can't feed themselves. But it's a lie. You see sometimes somebody will come around and be saying that Cameroon is poor. Cameroon is not even one. There are lots of European countries that you put together like that. Cameroon is still richer than all of them put together. So I really want this to go into the minds of the youths in this country. This country is not poor. This country is one of the top countries when it comes to the production of gas. We have a lot of gas. We have a lot of petroleum. Our arable land in this country is about 94,000 square kilometers. It is 3 times the country called Rwanda. We have enough arable land. 60% of this country is made up of youths who are less than 25 years. That is wealth. What that means, now look at this. You see Cameroon, with all these statistics that we have in this country, Cameroon has a huge potential to become even a world power. Look at Japan today. The population of Japan is aging. What that means, that's why you see they are too inclined to artificial intelligence, because they want machines to take over the work that the people are getting old. So they will not have people to do it. Yes. So they are struggling. So to give birth to children, for them to grow and reach that point, they don't have the possibility to do that because they have to go through education. So what is a short way? Use machines now to replace those old people. What does this mean? This means that Cameroon has the potential to even become a country richer than the current day. Any country where the communities have started coming together and putting their resources and energies together and developing, they have developed within 10 years. China did it, and China is what it is today. Just within 10 years, that China was able to do what it did. So, you see, when people go, they start saying Cameroon is broke, Cameroon is this, then you find the young people swimming over through the Mediterranean Sea to go to Europe. Meanwhile, they have lied to them. They have lied to them. They are leaving the wealth behind and running away to go and be suffering in the West. So we have a lot of possibilities to create value, especially in our agriculture.
Okay. Hello, Mr. Liu. Greetings to Apostle and Doctor. Mr. Liu, your programs are always so educative. God bless you, Mr. Liu, and all the studio. Ngala Victor is writing from Bomenda. Good evening to you. Victor, good evening, Mr. Liu. I think the problem lies with the government who let foreign products to dominate and kill our local market. So I think Cameroonians should start to focus on Cameroon-produced food and not imported spanners from Yaoundé. Good evening, Mr. Liu. My Media Prime don't have time. You have to put a time under your logo. Daniel is writing from Libreville. I understand what you're saying. You don't have watch and clock. You want to see time, but on My Media Prime. We'll work on that, please. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Thank you for this wonderful message. It really impacts my life as a science student. I learned a lot from this, and my name is Akwafe Franca from Boya. Thanks for this wonderful message today, and keep impacting young Cameroonians with such kind of messages. And I want to especially thank Dr. Tata for this message. Thanks a lot, okay? Good evening, Mr. Leo. Please ask the doctor between water fufu and fufu corn, which can be converted for a long period of time. Paul is writing from a Kondo Titi. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I'm Nsungkikang Chires from Boya. We have cassava in mile 14. How can we do to process it? Thanks. Okay, Dr. Tata can help you. Just get to him, I'm sure. Very interesting and good culinary program. Why this attack on our eating culture? If puff puff and beans, water fufu and eru, achu and others are toxic, as some claim, what alternative dishes are being prescribed for our people? Touch not my fufu and eru, else the manu gods of Obasanjo and Ekpe will come after you. Agbo Daniel, writing from Trieste in Italy. Good evening. Special greetings to Apostle Ambe and esteemed panelists. All these above-mentioned foods have been keeping our parents and grandparents healthy and alive. Why do we castigate it? I think the processing and preparation of our food should be properly monitored. Meanwhile, thank you for bringing credible and educational programs on air. Prince Akama Williams, writing from Kumba. Good evening to you, Prince from Kumba. What about Douala? Where is it found? Somebody's asking where you are.
Cité de la Paix.
Okay, Cité de la Paix. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Please, can you ask doctor to tell us the effects of constipation, please? Okay, I'm not sure that's what we are discussing here today. Even not everybody will send their problems. So, good evening, Mr. Liu, and the panel is excellent revelations from the doctor. And my worry is, how can such information reach our rural farmers in places like Banten in Bui Division and other remote villages? Elfrida, writing from Bomenda. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I'm really enjoying the program. It's educative. Please, for Mr. Tata's number. Okay, you are enjoying the program. We are glad that you're enjoying it. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Is Tata Denny from Douala. I want to appreciate your programs. It's very educative. Thank you. Now, there is a problem. We are faced with this threat, food threat. We have lived it after the war that broke out between Russia and Ukraine. It has shown beyond reasonable doubt that Africa depends on these guys for food, because we saw Senegal's president move to meet these guys there to plead that we need food. Is this not an opportunity for Africans to sit back and say, hey, we don't need them? This is an opportunity for us to create a very large market for ourselves.
I think the last 2 to 3 years, God has lifted up his countenance on Africa by the series of crises that break out in the world. It began with the COVID-19. The COVID-19 to me was not a crisis, it was an eye-opener to the African continent and to all Africans. Because when the borders were shut, because sometimes we used to feel like if Europe does not open, we cannot breathe, we can't survive, we cannot live. We depend practically on everything from Europe. Practically, I mean, even mattresses, teacups, spoons, to the extent where gas, cookers, and the rest come from Europe. We don't longer think anymore how we can be creative here. And because of the COVID-19, the borders were shut. That time we were left in between the devil and the deep blue sea. We were asked to decide our fate, and we decided that fate. We decided the fate of the COVID-19 to tell the world that we can practically be shut off from the world and still survive. Look at the country that made maximum impact. There was a time that China cut off from the world. It made impact. Russia cut off from the world. They made impact. Japan cut off from the world. They made impact. As I'm talking to you right now, Africa has been given opportunities to cut off from the world and develop what they have, the manpower, the skill, the talent, the intelligence, and their own technology that will run things for them. But Africa is still trying to fall back into the ditch that the war or circumstances brought them out of. COVID-19, we were taught from Senegal how to produce COVID-19 test kits, something that we're supposed to have been importing from China. We were taught how to produce face masks, something we're supposed to have been importing from China. We're supposed to produce hand sanitizer, something we're supposed to be importing in containers from China. You discovered during the COVID-19, Africa was independent. We even found drugs from our local herbs to cure the COVID-19. That shutdown from the world caused us to start thinking within us, to start seeing ways out of our dilemma. But if Africa is still drifting back, I almost see the mask we used to produce in those days from normal materials here that have disappeared. Since COVID-19 disappeared, you go to police stations, you go to banks, you see but the masks that come from China. What has happened to that technology that came out within that period? You go to hospital, the test kits right now that tell advanced test kits that came from China. What about the ones that came from Senegal during that period when we were cut off from the world? Where are the hand sanitizers that came from the local places? Could we not package those things and brand them and put them in our shops and then insist on us buying them? No. Another opportunity has equally come up again, the crisis in Ukraine. The war that broke out in Ukraine has opened our eyes to realize that we cannot keep on depending on Russia and Ukraine for wheat and for gas. This was a time for us to exploit the materials we have around us here and to cut off from those guys completely. And when they intend to come again, say, oh, the crisis pushed us to discover that we have the opportunity and the ability to produce this thing we buy from people for many years. Then you see, as this crisis will go through like that, the idea of the flour, potato flour, plantain flour, because I saw bread being put on the internet, say, premier pain fabrique au Cameroun par la farine de plantain. That means our plantain could produce flour, but we waited till war broke out in Ukraine before we could produce that. Now, can we continue from that opportunity we have? No. That plantain flour will suddenly disappear out of the scene, that we fall back now to go to Ukraine. Now, instead advancing the flour and the cassava, we are producing wheat now in Ogu. Are they telling us that the technocrats we have now brought wheat production in Cameroon and we are very proud of it. We are proud of it. Then now we are learning how destructive the wheat is in our system.
Why investing in it when we have potatoes, cassava, and plantains?
Funniest thing, those guys who produce the wheat over there don't consume it.
They're sending this way.
China does not consume the tomato they produce.
They export, that's the point.
They don't consume the sugar they produce. They don't consume the tomato they produce. They don't consume even the wheat. They come here and collect what is good for them and sell the rubbish.
That's why that's why they've bought land in Africa. They are cultivating and sending to their country.
Back to their country.
And then the garbage food that they are cultivating, they are producing in their country, they sell it here.
I won't blame the common man. I will not blame the common, because the common is operating out of ignorance. These personnel who have gone and studied all this international knowledge and still come by here and cannot educate our people is my concern. It's my concern. And if at all we keep on leaving people in darkness and in obscurity, how do we expect the country to advance? This is an opportunity for Cameroon to become an exporting country for flour. The kind of flour that is needed by everybody in the world, because they are having materials that are not even needed, yet they are selling high. How can a product that destroys be in high demand than the one that cures?
That's the point.
That's the question we should be asking.
Okay, I'll take some few messages and then I get to you, Doctor. Good evening, Mr. Liu and the educators. Teacher once said 95% of the illnesses result from the food we eat. Exactly. I'm so happy we took this time to open our heads. The more honesty is writing from Yaoundé. Please to not write your children's name Monday, okay? Good evening, Mr. Liu. I wish to say a big thanks for this very educative program. I have learned a lot. I wish our politicians get to understand the dangers of foreign products. Rivers is writing from Bomenda. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Eating puff and beans is very good because you have carbohydrates, fats from puff and beans. You have protein from it, which is good for bodybuilding. Pap and puff is not very much a balanced diet because these two are more of carbohydrates, but if some protein food is taken in between, it is good. Water fufu and eru is good because eru is vegetable which supplies the body with vitamins, good for the body, and water fufu supply the body with carbohydrate, which is good source of energy. Judith is writing from Bafusam. Wow, Judith, thank you for that demonstration of knowledge. This arable land which doctor is mentioning like that, some rich people are grabbing and sending farmers away because they have money to bribe the authorities. So claim Good evening, Mr. Leo. We have enough cassava in Mbokam Jakiri, but nobody to buy. Please, Mr. Leo, help me with Dr. Tata's number. Mezuzu Leonard, writing from Mbokam Jakiri. Okay, you'll get to Dr. Tata. I've never seen a truck carrying oranges, bananas, pamplemousse, etc. entering the companies that produce top banana, pamplemousse, orange, citron. God bless my media prime. Okay, yeah, but what he's saying is the truth now.
Yeah.
Should we also consider this? We drink pamplemousse every day, we drink all these things. And how do we produce these things?
Yeah, they are flavors. They do concentrates. They import the concentrates and then they just dissolve them and then with the sweeteners and they sweeten. There's different types of sweeteners that they use. They could use sugar. They could use sugar is the first point of contact. One thing we should notice that to produce fruit drink with natural fruits that will have the shelf life that the drinks that we have, because most of our drinks that we have in Cameroon, the shelf life is about 6 months. I don't know if people even knew that the drinks we have, if you take a bottle of drink, pay attention to it, the shelf life is 6 months. If it's more than 6 months, know that it's not healthy anymore. Well, what I was saying is that to produce a fruit drink that is going to be on the shelf for 6 months is difficult. Not impossible, but difficult. It's expensive. So since the people they're just interested in their monies, they'll just do the concentrates and then they dissolve it, just like what children take. They call it, I don't want to call that company name. It's just a powder that they just put into yeah. So they just say, so that is it. So but you see, there are ways that these drinks, and I've seen, and let me just take this opportunity to say this, I've seen a lot of young people, I encourage a lot of young people to start doing their own fruit drinks and selling to their churches and all those things fresh, right? That is good. But please, when you do your fruit drink, don't put it in transparent bottles, especially for those of you who use preservatives. I know some of you use preservatives in the fruit drinks. When you use preservative in fruit drink, the preservative, depending on the concentration, if you have read well and you've learned your lessons very well, you would know that there's a specific concentration that you are required to follow when you are adding the additives to the fruit drink. But when you do that, do not put the fruit drink in a transparent container. You are poisoning the population, because this is what happens. The additives that they use, the preservative is the word. The preservative that they use in the fruit drink to extend the shelf life to 6 months or so, what happens is that preservative actually reacts with vitamins present in the fruits and then produces something which is very toxic, which gives blood cancer. So, but most of them don't know. But that reaction only takes place in the presence of sunlight. So what that means is that if you produce natural fruit drinks and you want to preserve it, you must preserve it in a container which is not transparent. So it must be in a container which light cannot pass through. That's what I mean. So I cannot see the drink inside. If I can see the drink inside, it means the drink is getting destroyed. I've seen a lot of people advertising natural drinks and they're putting in transparent containers and they say that it can stay 6 months. If there's already a cross on it, you see, it's not possible to have that. If that drink is going to stay 6 months, it means you've used preservatives. If you've used preservative and it's going to stay 6 months and you are putting in a transparent bottle, it means you don't know what you're doing.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Leo. We have strayed from our natural food to artificial food. We used to learn and cultivate food with compost manure, which is natural. Now they introduce chemicals that are killing us. Is that not worse than puff and beans? They should let us be. Okay. Good evening, doctor. What about egg? How many can we eat per day? Good evening, Dr. Tata. What about eggs? Okay. Good evening. I enjoyed the program. Please, doctor, let us know where to buy the flour in Limbe. Winifred is writing from Limbe. Go to former guarantee in Limbe. You get it there. Good evening to you, Mr. Leo. Thank you for the interesting topic. I love your program. Keep up. Casey is writing from Boya. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Water fufu can cause typhoid if not well cooked. Fembe from bone char. Okay, I'm sure that has been clarified already. Good evening, sir. The reason why many people get sick in this generation than our parents of the yesteryears is because we've tried to industrialize everything. We take in too much chemicals, especially in food, whereas our parents ate good food. Too many chemicals, too much fertilizers. We pollute our water with our waste products. Please, for doctor's number, please request that on WhatsApp, please. Good evening, Mr. Leo. More grace to all of you in the studio. My media prime, you will always be the best. Love you. Chuye Stanley is writing from Suza. Good evening to you. Good evening, Mr. Leo. This GM seeds that the doctor is talking about is highly cultivated in Ewane. We call it hybrid corn. Please, we need him. Please, we needed him in Ewane to sensitize us on this. We cherish it so much. Mba Han is writing from Ewane. Mba Han's okay.
I must say something on that.
Okay, briefly, please.
Yeah, please don't confuse. There's a difference between GM seeds and hybrid seeds. Iraq produces hybrid, not GM. So if Iraq gives you seeds, you know that it's their hybrid seeds. Hybrid seeds are natural seeds. You can just take one variety and another variety and cross-pollinate them in a laboratory environment and then multiply the seeds and then distribute it to farmers. That is what they do. They are all natural. They can respond to the natural tendencies of the soil, to the natural structure and nature of the soil.
Okay.
But genetically modified seeds are seeds whose gene structure have been tampered with. As a matter of fact, when you even eat the products of genetically modified seeds, the result of digestion is not exactly as what your system is expecting.
Okay.
So it causes a lot of harm, even to the body.
Okay. Daniel in Kumba says, what about rice? I don't know. Good. It seems as if we need to do a specific program on food there. People want to know what they have to eat and how to eat it. Hi, good evening, Doc. How can we supply you with cassava? Okay, you want to supply Doc with cassava? You just call the number I have sent to you. Good evening, sirs. I'm very glad watching this show. God bless you for the great knowledge. Please, I need doctor's contact. Divine is writing from Boya Town. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Leonard. Doctor is putting some sense into me. Please, Dr. Tata number to learn more. Nge Divine is writing from Makba. Okay, good evening to you, Divine. Mr. Liu, you don't always read my text. That is why I'm taking time today to read. Yesterday, many of you were writing that I don't read. I'm taking time to read some of the messages today. Good evening to all in the studio. Doctor talks about honey and in pap, but others say honey is in hot tea is not good. It automatically turns into sugar. How true can this be? Ndang from Bamenda. Where is the office located in Bamenda? Do you have an office in Bamenda?
Not yet.
Okay. The office is not yet in Bamenda. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Thanks for this program. Hope the sellers are listening. Kum Godwill, writing from Yaoundé. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Please ask the doctor if overconsumption of pineapple by a 3 months pregnant woman can affect the pregnancy. Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Mr. Leo, please tell Dr. Tata that my village Paligam has a lot of cassava that can be used to produce flour. He can contact me if in need of much of this cassava. Narcis writing from Pomenda. You should contact him or he should contact you. I've sent you his number. Call Dr. Tata. Good evening, Mr. Liu and all the panelists. I am Terenzo writing from Boya Town. This is a very interesting program. Please, can the doctor drop the website of his company? I'm sure many will be interested to buy some of his products or even be suppliers of raw products. Okay, doctor is going to give you that after the program or by the end of the program. Oops. Good evening, sir. I am thankful for this show. My worry is, does Eru digest? Ase Mispa writing from Bingo. Yes, it does now.
Yeah. It's
vegetable.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
good evening to
it's
everyone.
Not raw fish.
It even
Easy
helps
digestion.
to wash your inside stomach.
Yes.
Okay.
You realize if you eat too much arrow, you run.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's good. It's very good.
Good evening to everyone in the studio. Maybe fulere should be recommended to drink instead of top anana, etc. Oxford is writing from from Douala. He says the doctor says yes. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Could you ask the doctor to explain why sardine and bread, which is poisonous, is the staple food for the military? Okay. Yes, sardine. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Leo.
It's not even good.
Let me satisfy them. Every day they're insulting me that I'm not really, I want to satisfy them today. Good evening, Mr. Liu. We have enough plantains in our compound, but we don't know what to do with it. Call doctor. If he's available, he could buy some. Good evening, doctor and apostle. Please, can you tell me how then to use sugar? Okay. Good evening. Good evening. Thanks for the eye opener. Can we have the name of shops where we can get the cassava, plantain, and sweet potatoes flour? Can the name be put on your screen? Doctor is going to give you the names by the time he ends this program. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Good things to everyone in the house. Writing from Bamenda, please wish to ask the doctor, is waterfufu useless to the body? No, he answered that already. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Greetings to everyone in the house. Writing from Amanda. Which doctor is okay? Good evening, Mr. Leo. Greetings to everyone in the house. Thank you very much. Good evening, Mr. Leo. I'm enjoying it. Please for Dr. Tata's number. Okay. Yeah, the messages are only flowing in, and if I have to read all, means we'll finish by 9:30. Yes, Apostle Ambe Valentine, as we look forward to fixing this problem, should we be expecting the agronomists, like you are saying, the biologists and the others, they should be seen as working by carrying out researches and then telling people that this is what should work for us, and also policies actually designed in Cameroon that protects home production, not only production but consumption?
Of course, Mr. Leo. I think they sell the penal code of Cameroon in the streets. Why should they be able with the penal code? Why don't you set health manuals also? Manuals in almost every field, so that any area you are ignorant about, you get a book of that area and then study, because I think what has developed Europe and America a lot is reading. Europeans and Americans read a lot. Even in an area that you are not specialized in, you can pick a book in that area and then draw from somebody's wealth of wisdom from that area. So I think we should have to put vital information into materials and then circulate them in the country and call the attention of Cameroonians to study in those areas and be able to have basic knowledge, basic knowledge. I don't think you need a PhD in food processing to know what to eat. I don't think you need to have a master's degree or a first degree or an A-level certificate to know what to eat. I think if simple guidelines are put in simple nutrition books and given to individuals, they will know how to guide themselves on what to eat and what not to eat. It's going to also prolong the lifespan of the people in the society, because we are talking about the highest centenarians in South Korea and Japan. It's based on what they eat. America is based on what they eat, and that's based on the fact that a lot of information concerning that area has circulated in the lives of people on social media, in books, on TV shows. People are educated on the kind of things to consume and how healthy some things are. Because I think it's just ignorance that is killing most of us when we say we are eating bad food. Is because we do not know in that area. Nobody is intelligent in almost every area. Everybody has a particular area that he's an expert in. Let those who are expert in one area strengthen those who are weak in another area. So I think those things should be properly communicated, because it's really, really dangerous for people to be dying. We have a high mortality rate in Africa. It's because of so many diseases, also wars, as well as poor dieting. The factors are so many, but I think poor dieting is one of the reasons why we have a high mortality rate in the continent of Africa.
Okay. Doctor, many persons would want to know where to buy the stuff you just talked about.
Yes, they can always go to our shops in Yaoundé. We are located at the Total Jouvence. In Limbe, we are located at All Guarantee, as I indicated before. In Douala, we are at Cité de la Paix. In Boya, we have two stores in Boya. We have in Moliko, and we have in Bukwango. So please, if you want to get any of the products, just do well to contact Afro-Brains Cameroon on Facebook, or you can also go to our website. You can also call My Media Prime, and then you'll be given our contact. So feel free to use all these channels to get in touch with us. So I was just going to say one thing, just to probably to learn that, you see, one of the challenges that we have in our country is that we have a lot of people who have been to school and very few people who are educated. That is why no matter how high people have acquired educational certificates, we still have corruption, we still have moral decay, we still have embezzlement, we still have all these things. Can you conceive the fact that somebody is in Cameroon and collects money that Cameroonians are supposed to be taking care of health and all those things, and go and keep in a bank account in Europe, and he comes back to Cameroon and sit and he's looking at you and I suffering? Do you think, is that person educated? No, that's not an educated person. That is someone who is schooled. So education is not, you see, we have made this mistake several years. We have been mistaking people who have schooled to people who are educated. There are people who have not been to classrooms, but I can tell you for a fact that if you watch their behavior, if you watch their attitude, I mean, you've been to churches, you found some people who behave, who can speak maturely. Yes. You enjoy, I mean, you really enjoy those type of people. So we have quality people who have not necessarily been to classrooms. So let us begin to value. So that is why when we talk of, because we raise this issue of healthy food, it is said that if you do not eat your food as your medicine, you would eat your medicine as your food. Okay. A lot of Cameroonians don't pay attention to the quality of food that they eat. Some people think that when something is packaged from abroad, it means that it is better than what we have locally. Yeah. It is left for us to take responsibility, because if we want to continue to put the blame on the government, when we are going to the hospital to buy medications, the government is not following us. So let us take the responsibility. I sit in my office and people call from America, communities call and say that they want food, vegan food. They want us to produce vegan food for the vegan community. But this is something that Cameroonians can also, because we have this food here, it's affordable for us.
But they are ignorant about it.
But that is the thing. So the people abroad have seen the value.
What is vegan food?
Yeah, that those people who don't eat animal products are referred to as vegans. They are vegetarians. Yeah. So what I'm saying is that we don't see the value. It's like it's like what we have in Cameroon. It's like a golden ring on a pig's nose, as it is always said. So we don't see the value until we see that people abroad are scrambling for it. Now that the local market is not responding to the local products, what's going to happen is that there's going to be a trend. Most of the products that are produced locally will be sold, and that is the truth, because the value of organic products abroad is very high. It attracts foreign currency. So if we continue to feed them with healthy food and then they send us the garbage food, or what the Americans call junk food, where are we going to end? So it is time for Cameroonians to wake up and realize that the food that we have here in Cameroon is the healthiest food.
Good evening, Mr. Liu. I don't have a problem with the doctor who says puff puff and beans has a problem, but I hope he will not say fufu corn and jama has a problem, because that's where I will have a big problem with him. Dominique Alisa, writing from Watus in Yaoundé. Good evening, Mr. Liu and all those in the studio. This is Vaniela from Bamenda. I appreciate your program. It's really educative and timely. Please, can I have the contact of the CEO of Afro-Brains? Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I love your program. Today's topic, it's really mentally catching. To me, I know it's the manner of preparing the food and not the food itself. In addition, anything in excess in the system is poisonous. It's Jennifer writing from Yaoundé 1. Good evening, Mr. Liu. If medical doctors say puff puff and beans is toxic in human system, then they will one day tell us Supermont, TV, and Tangi water is toxic in human system. Ote Samuel Etonge writing from Big Ngbandi. Good evening, Mr. Leo. I am Mrs. Blandine in Bamenda. I'm enjoying your program. Thank you very much. This one says, if not to say puff and beans, they kill them. For don't die every since because now my daily food be that. The predator good. Okay. Evening to you all. Yes, you eat it every day. Good evening, gentlemen. We should challenge the Medical Council to show us their indigenous research journal that makes them take this stand rather than lifting Western journal that's just full of their interest. Mohammed Saidu writing there. Great program. Good evening. Looking at the beans advertised there, we find that it is polluted with too many spices that are already on the beans. Well-cooked natural foods and clean environment will not be toxic to the body. Everyone's product is best for him. Nan is writing from Boya. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Please for Dr. Tata's number. And Vital is writing from Bikoko. We just have to end the program at this juncture. We want to thank you, Desmond and Eli, for producing the program. Stop calling, please. And to you, Dr. Tata, and Apostle Ambe for coming. Not forgetting you, Tabitha Bebrian, supervising the work we do out here. Thank you for watching. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.